before Krishna gives us himself.
So what is that? I don't really understand, like, how does that materialize? What does that look like? What does that actually mean?
What does that actually mean? It's a statement from the Bhagavatam. Satyam dishati arhito arhitam nrinam naivartado yat punar arhito yataha sorvidate bhajatam anichitam ichapidanam nija padapalavam. That if a person asks Krishna for something, Krishna will give it to you, unless you ask for something which is going to make you again ask. It's going to make you ask for the same thing again, like it's an addiction. In that case, Krishna gives you himself or his own lotus feet, even though you don't want him, and thereby satisfies all your desires. That's a verse from the Bhagavatam. So he's asking me, what does that verse mean? Like, what does that look like? Krishna gives you himself. What does that mean? Does that mean you get an Amazon package and you open it up and there's Krishna inside? Like, what does that functionally look like, that Krishna gives you his own lotus feet? That's the question. Okay, who can answer the question? But you got to yell and be loud so that I don't have to repeat every single thing you say for everybody else online. Who can answer the question? Come on, guys. Wake up. Raise your hand. Don't sit there petrified. You're not 4 years old. You're all adults. You're mostly devotees. Get your act together. Get together. You look like literally look like a deer in the headlights. Like if there's like a Indian human version of a deer, it's you. You're like, but you're not. All you people are intelligent and like, so get it together. Let's make some comments here. What do you got? Loud and proud.
I was gonna say, giving service. Like you get the opportunity.
All right, you get the opportunity to serve Krishna. So when you say Krishna gives you his lotus feet, or I'm praying to the lotus feet of the deities, or the lotus feet of my guru is what I aspire for life after life, it's not like we have some kind of foot fetish going on where it's like all about feet and we're really into feet and something like that. That's not what it is. Rather, the feet, like if you touch somebody's feet, what does that mean?
Respect them.
I mean, nobody can answer the question. It's not from India because you guys are all semi-lobotomized. I'm really losing faith in everybody quickly here. But there is no idea of bowing down, touching your parents' feet in the West. It's not something that people do. It's totally not typical behavior. There's a show called Never Have I Ever. You guys seen it? It's a fantastic TV show. I can't take it in large doses, but I can take it in small doses, and somehow or other, like the whole South Indian, ridiculous, over-the-top South Indian thing, I totally relate to. Like, I feel like these are my people. That's like the way I grow up. That's the way I'm raising my children. Like, I feel like I feel I can totally identify with the actress, the main actress, the Canadian girl, whatever her name is. And I also feel like I can identify with the parents and the grandparents and everybody. It's like, it's me. It's my life. There's the episode of the new season that just came out that me and my wife are slowly but surely working through. It's like date night is Never Have I Ever. I can only take so much of it because it's like super gossip girly and it's so cheesy. I need like small amounts, like chutney. I can't have a whole plate of it at once. I just need to have a little bit with my sabji. There's a scene where the husband and wife are leaving India to move to the West, and they just bow down and touch their parents' feet. It's like totally natural. They just bow down and touch their parents' feet. It's like the most natural thing in the world. Like every time I see my guru, I bow down and touch my guru's feet. It's like totally normal. And so, but in the West, when do you do that? When do you have occasion to bow down and touch somebody's feet? Except like if it's like a weird like BDSM thing, and like you like it's like a foot fetish thing. But like other than that, when would there be ever an occasion where you bend down and touch somebody's feet? I mean, I was in India with you guys. We were trying to get through these. You guys ever see those? I mean, you probably don't, but on my Instagram feed, I have photos of Uttarakhand on my Instagram feed because I like to see the Himalayas and the Ganga, and so I have photos of, like, it's like a picture of a guy driving a motorcycle with a GoPro on his head, and he's driving, and I'm just like in ecstasy. Or it's just somebody's like taking a photo of a little tiny brick house on a terrace farm thing, and there's an old man drinking chai. And I'm just like, I'm looking at that, like I'll triple look at it. I'll like watch the reel 5 times or something like that. I really, really like the mountains. And so, we were up there in the mountains, and there was a full landslide, like car-sized boulders that just fell down and blocked the road in a place called Lambagar, so we couldn't get up the mountains. So we had to jump off, get all of our luggage, put on our backs, and then try to walk down the bank of the Ganga and walk along the bank, and then come back up to the road and get another vehicle on the other side because our bus couldn't go through. You guys follow me? So the road was washed out. We stopped, disembarked, grabbed all of our luggage, whatever we could carry, went down the bank, cruised up, got back up on the road, and then caught a bunch of, whatever. Does that make sense? Okay. So they weren't letting us walk because it was dangerous, because massive boulders were coming down. So they got to wait till like 15 minutes of no boulders coming down, then they let you walk across. Does that make sense? Okay, so they're making us wait. I'm getting tired of waiting. We've been on the road 12, 14 hours already that day alone driving, and we still got to get up to our place. I got to get everybody checked in and get all that stuff figured out. It's a pretty massive endeavor, and it's getting late. It's getting late. It's 4:00 or something like that, and we still got a lot of journey left. And so we're stuck there with hundreds of people, and I'm like, I'm over this. I'm going to bust a move. But there's full military there. It's like, like you look at the Indian military and you're like, I could probably take all these guys. You have that sense. You're like, I could probably take all these guys. And that old flintlock rifle's not going to do them any good. It's probably not even loaded. They don't even know how to load it. They got like 4 bullets on their belt. They don't know what they're doing. Take that rifle and use it against them, You have that sense. But obviously I'm not going to do that. And so, because probably there's a guy who doesn't know how to use his rifle, and they'll shoot you and you're bummed, and it's going to suck. So we're waiting, and I'm getting tired of waiting. So what do? I walk up to the chief guy. He's a colonel. I just walk up to him, and I start touching his feet. And I'm like, oh, Maharaj, and I start touching his feet. Like, there's a military dude in a uniform, and I'm like, got my bucket and my backpack and my kid, and I'm like bowing down all awkwardly in front of hundreds of people, like trying to like mob his feet and get my head on his feet and reaching at his feet. Do you follow? And he just like immediately starts backing up, totally like uncoordinated, trying to pick me up, getting super uncomfortable, and then lets us go. Who was with me when we did this? Am I making this up? It's exactly how it went down, or what? I got sick of waiting, and so I started being like, oh, Sadaji, and I like started bowing down, and I wouldn't let up, and like, I'm like the guru, and I've got all my followers with me, and I'm bowing down to him, and like, groveling at his feet, and he's like picking me up and embracing me and backing up, and he's like, all right. That was it. Right? Probably saved you guys an hour, right? So, culturally, we don't really understand this whole idea of the feet and the feet and the feet and the feet. But In, I don't know, the bulk of the world, I think in Southeast Asia, it's the same kind of thing. Probably not like the Philippines, but like in like China or something like that. Thailand for sure. Myanmar for sure. It's just like there's a whole cultural thing where children touch their parents' feet, students touch their teachers' feet, and it's a symbol of humility. It's a symbol of being junior. It's a way of showing affection from a junior to a senior. It's a culturally encoded phenomena. Do you follow? If you understand that point, how I could randomly walk up to a colonel that I wanted to beg a favor from and start groveling at his feet, he would get it, we would embrace, and he would let me go. It's a cultural exchange. It's something that everybody understands the way it works. He's obliged to favor me and bless me and permit me because I show my servitude. You follow? Does that make sense? Then when you hear Krishna gives you his feet, you understand that Krishna allows you to be a servant. Krishna gives you service. Krishna creates that bond with you where he looks after you in a protective way. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's communicated by this idea of Krishna gives you his own lotus feet. So you were asking this question, and it was a legitimate question, but you're Indian. I mean, you're not even Indian. Where were you born?
In Paris.
Yeah, so
you're French.
So you're French, yeah. It's like, there it is. Although you're not born in India, being from an Indian diaspora family, half Indian diaspora family, you understand this point. You were born in India. Yeah. Just like batting zero. Yeah, I know, you're the only one. I'm looking around, it's like you're the only one. You understand you grew up touching your parents' feet, right?
Yeah.
It's the most natural thing in the world, right? And when I gave the example that Krishna gives you his own lotus feet, you had an understanding of what that meant, right? It's automatic. You understand. So it's actually a cultural phenomenon that you don't understand the verse. Because the verse was written in a language to speak to a group of people who spoke that language using poetry and metaphor and alliteration that was meaningful to those people. So it's not just service, although that is valuable, but it's also the sense of if I accept you at my feet, then what am I responsible for? Protecting you, facilitating you, governing your life, helping you, giving you what you need, carrying you what you lack, preserving what you have. It's actually a whole relationship. If Krishna gives you his own lotus feet, you now become protected by Krishna. You become maintained by Krishna. You're now connected to Krishna. Krishna loves and looks after you and cares for you the way a parent cares for their child. The classic example of a junior and a senior is you go up and you touch your senior's feet, and then and I don't think anybody knows this one. It's not they embrace you. You know what they do? They bless you, it's true. But that's not the exact symbol. That is true. You are correct. But like if you look in the Mahabharata and if you look at the exchanges, there's a particular exchange. You touch their feet and they smell your head. Which also sounds totally weird too. It makes no sense. If you've ever had a child, if you've ever had a baby, you kind of just smell your baby's head. It's just like fresh skin thing. I don't know how to explain it, but it's just like, it's the odor of a new baby. It's a bit ambrosial. It's a bit like soft like a pillow, and it's also fresh, and And there's like intimacy there, and you smell the head of your child, and you're filled with a feeling of parental affection that is itself very, very sweet. To give an example that probably you guys could better relate to, it's like smelling the pheromones. You guys know what pheromones are? Tough luck. It's like smelling the pheromones or the scent. And that could even be the perfume that your lover wears. It's like a kind of intoxicating and like inspiring and a whole host of things. But imagine that with no carnal or sexual attraction. Imagine all the intensity and all the intimacy and all the complexity and all the intoxication without the sexual component. And that's what it's like to smell the head of your child. It's like Fernanda, who's a mom, is like she was like doing this, like nodding her head. But she's Portuguese. It's like the most un-Indian place on the planet. It's like the opposite of India. It's like literally halfway around the world from India or something like that. And so, but somehow or other, because it's a universal phenomenon. You smelled your baby's head, right?
Yes, she's 18 and still smells.
It's just like a thing. It's like a weird thing. It's a weird parental thing. They touch your feet, you smell their head. You say, I'm your parent, I'm protecting you. They say, I'm your child, I'm serving you. You follow? And these extreme overtures or these extreme symbols of that relationship that are encoded within a culture that's practically speaking absent. I think that smelling the head thing is pretty universal, but honestly I think because you're from Brazil, and Brazil is an old world culture. It's old world twice. It's old world from Portugal, which is old world, and it's old world from Africa. Both those things mixed together in Portuguese Brazilian culture. And so there's also like a whole like native thing going on there as well, but that wouldn't be part of your culture. But I think along with your black skin, you would have gotten something. I know that, when you spend that many generations in a country, you become fully Brazilian, and there's nothing left of your African heritage. If you want to find out where you're from in West Africa, you'd actually have to go and get your DNA done to really know. You might have a general sense because the slaves were brought from particular areas to Brazil. But to really know, you'd almost have to get your DNA done. But I tend to think that from two sides, both from the Portuguese side, and the Portuguese were horrible slave drivers. They were like the masters of the slave trade. That's one of the reasons why there's so many slaves in Brazil. If you go to many of the places where they had the slave towns in Africa, where the slave traders would be, they're from Portugal. So they were really, really bad at slave trading. FYI, just an unfun fact. But I think from both of those cultures, because they're both old cultures, somehow you would have probably picked up some of that from your mom. Your mom would have smelled your head. Her mom smelled her head. We don't even know where that comes from. And there's going to be elements that just make it their way through. And just like capoeira has so many elements of African culture that were just somehow passed down through the generations and is still there, there's going to be other elements that we're not even aware of, but they're just part of your cultural heritage. I don't think Americans have this. Like, I don't remember growing up having my head ever smelled by my parents. I don't remember thinking this is a cultural motif or it's something which is done in our culture. How about you guys who were raised here? Yeah? All right, so maybe I'm wrong. Or maybe you're from an ethnic tradition. You got an old, huh?
I'm Cuban.
You're Cuban, so then you're Mexican. So it's like, I don't know. I'm not, you know what I mean? Those are both old world cultures. Again, you know what I mean? Cuban and she's Mexican, so I don't know. You're not. You're like, what are you?
I'm just a total American person.
But you know this head smelling thing?
Yeah, I remember my mom, my aunts, everybody doing that to babies all
So it may be universal, but it's really a thing in India. And I think it's a thing in other old world cultures. And so when you hear a verse like this, Frenchie over here, he knew what it meant. And Brudge fully knew what it meant, right? So what does it mean? Krishna gives you his feet means he protects you, maintains you, cares for you, preserves what you lack, carries you what you have, looks after you, loves you, embraces you, and takes a fatherly, motherly role in your life. Did you guys follow that? That's a pretty easy way to analyze the verse that we're discussing. And through understanding culture and through understanding the poetic devices which are used to make good sense out of it. Do you guys follow that? That's one understanding. The other understanding is not so intuitive. The other understanding is that if you take shelter of Krishna, if you cry out to Krishna, if you commit to Krishna, and for most of us committing to Krishna means committing to a set of practical vows that we take when we get initiated. Chanting every day, worshiping the deity, serving your gurus, studying, being a part of a mission. Like there are a number of practical vows that we take. Like we literally sit down and take vows when we're ordained, lifelong vows that require us to do things every single day differently than we might do them otherwise. So if you commit to Krishna, turn towards Krishna, and there's something undone in your life, you want to do something. One devotee from Canada died in 2010 in India, and he had a desire to have pancakes with maple syrup, and somehow a devotee came from Canada with several kilos of maple syrup to offer to the deities, and they heard this devotee had this desire and then brought him maple syrup. He had pancakes and maple syrup right before he passed away. Paramahansa Yogananda talks about had a desire to drink a fresh coconut right before he died. So he just, like in LA or wherever he passed away, brought him a fresh coconut, which wasn't so easy. Nowadays, it's like nothing, but back in those days, it's practically speaking unheard of. No one was bringing fresh coconuts in. And so if you have some unfulfilled desire, something that you really want, Krishna is delighted to help you get that. Happy to help you get it. But Krishna is smart. And so sometimes you want something which isn't good for you. In which case Krishna's sad because he can't fulfill your desire because it's not good for you, and he has to be more paternal. You following this? And so in those cases, if you make it your life's work to turn towards Krishna, turn away from your addictive behaviors, turn away from the darkness, move towards the light, give your life to Krishna, make that conscious move on a daily basis, all through your life, in all circumstances, Krishna becomes obliged and desirous and inspired to reach through space and time and embrace you and appear before you and give you a vision and give you a divine revelation. So there's a practical aspect of Krishna bringing you groceries and arranging for you to have a career and making sure you eat, like Jesus talked about in the Sermon on the Mount, that You're so worried about God. They used to sacrifice doves. There's a whole thing. Like if you are going to sacrifice this animal, you do it this way. If you're going to sacrifice this animal, you do it this way. Have you guys ever read the Old Testament? It's insane. It's ridiculous. It's like you got to rip the wings off of this one, and then you got to bleed this one out, and there's all these different ways that you sacrifice various animals. The doves were sacrificed. Jesus wanted to release all the doves so they couldn't sell them to be tortured and sacrificed in the synagogue. They were doing these blood offerings. It's kind of a classic thing that's done in religion. You make these blood offerings. You kill animals and give a life to God. And so the Sermon on the Mount was, while Jesus was reforming the synagogue, he was making the point that you're so freaked out about how you're going to feed yourself and maintain yourself, and you're engaged in this really fear-based relationship with God. But don't you see he's feeding the birds and the insects, and everything is going on in God's creation? Well, why wouldn't he take care of you? Why wouldn't he feed you? Why wouldn't he look after you? You guys following this? Sometimes you get these people where they decide they're going to walk across the desert, or they're going to walk across America, and they with nothing, and they write a book about it, and then the book becomes filled with all of these amazing experiences of how when they put themselves in a vulnerable position like that, amazing things happen. Of course, if amazing things didn't happen and they died, then they wouldn't have gotten a chance to write the book because they would have died, and so you have to deal with that, but that's you're only going to get the winners, because the other ones have died out in the desert somewhere. There's the skulls in the desert that you see. So, but people get these experiences where amazing things happen. And so there's a practical side of things where Krishna actually arranges to make sure that you eat and sleep and get the basic necessities of life and have a fulfilling life. Do you guys follow that? Then there is that Krishna also, at a certain point in your life, just getting your basic necessities met isn't enough for you to feel God's love, and you become desirous of embracing the deity. You become desirous of touching the Lord. You become desirous of seeing God, and nothing else will satisfy. You turn towards Krishna, and you lay yourself out in front of Krishna, and you express your innermost desire that you wish to commune with divinity, and that's the most important thing to you, because you've evolved from just looking for God to give you material things. And so for such people and in such circumstances, Krishna then gives himself to you. And so, the verse isn't about people at that level. I feel like it's important to mention it, but the idea that Krishna gives himself to you, gives you his lotus feet, we can understand that culturally and metaphorically, and it's representing practical ways in which God looks after and protects and maintains you. But there's also the sense that if somebody sincerely turns to Krishna in all circumstances, and nothing else will satisfy them but Krishna, then Krishna makes arrangements to become available to that person. Krishna is purchased by pure love. Krishna desires our love. God has an unfulfilled desire, namely to receive our love. Because we have free will, the thing you get the person who has everything is you give them your love, which is something they don't have unless you choose to give it to them, because the very nature of love is it's always given freely. And so our love is this special gift, and devotees become possessed of an intense desire to achieve Krishna, and that desire attracts Krishna. And that desire is inversely proportional to material desires. If you're super enamored by the material world, then you're going to have a hard time being super attracted to Krishna because you're too into the material world. It's like if somebody's addicted to drugs, they can't have a successful relationship because they're in a relationship with the drugs they're addicted to. And so there is a sense in which they're inversely proportioned, where when one goes up, the other one goes down. So you have to get rid of your material desires so that you can get your desire for Krishna. But it's not exactly that simple. You will still have some material desires, and you'll turn to Krishna. And these desires are still there, but you just turn to Krishna anyway. And Krishna understands that you're sad, that you're lonely, that you're confused, that you're resentful, that you're stuck. But you've got this good quality that you turn towards Krishna. And even these desires haven't gone away completely, which then puts you in a really good position. All I want is Krishna. So he's like offering you anything under the sun. You're like, no, I'm not interested. And Krishna's like, okay, I got to give this person myself. I have to appear before this person. But even if your material desires aren't gone, if you've been trained to turn to Krishna and to focus on Krishna and to always take shelter of Krishna, that creates a bond. And Krishna becomes obliged to you. And Krishna miraculously and powerfully manifests in your life and fills your heart with joy and knowledge and tranquility and peace and realization and understanding and forgiveness and light and love and all good qualities, and even like way beyond when you would deserve them. And that's also him appearing in your life and nourishing you and filling your cup. And so it's not just that at the end of the game, when you have no material desires left, you can have an ecstatic vision of Krishna. That vision, that intimate communion with divinity, that can take place to various degrees along the road as well. And so we can also take an extremely literal meaning of what Krishna means when he says, I'll give myself to you. If I was going to answer this question, the first thing I'd do is I'd have to explain, what do we mean when we say, Krishna? People don't get what we mean when we say Krishna. And so your question is based on the idea of being a personalist, of having a proper understanding of divinity, such that you can pray to Krishna, he can answer your prayers, he's a person, he hears your prayers, he's also omnipotent, he's also omniscient, he can hear your prayers, like the source of all reality is a person. Not a person like a human being with a body made out of flesh and blood, but the source of reality is a conscious, individual, transcendent being. The source of all existence is a divine being, a person for all intents and purposes. What's a person? An individual, conscious being with will and thought and feeling. And so the source of all reality is that. Which means when you pray to Krishna, you're actually praying to a person who can hear your prayers and reciprocate with them through space and time, who's omnipotent and omniscient and omnibenevolent. And so you're talking about, you pray to a person and they actually hear you, not in some metaphorical sense, they actually hear you. And they're fully equipped to help you. So, would an all good God force you to go back to heaven? No. Could an all good God force you to go back to heaven? No. Not if you have free will. If you have free will, is God omnipotent? No. He can be omnipotent with a lowercase o, but if you have free will, he can't do absolutely anything. If God's fully omnipotent, do you have free will? No, you don't. If God's fully omnipotent, can you love? No, you can't. Do we have free will? Yes, we do. Therefore, it means there must be some sense in which Krishna is not fully omnipotent. So, given that you have to turn towards Krishna, if you turn towards Krishna, would he liberate you? Of course he would. And all good God would want to do that. And all powerful God could do that. He's just not powerful enough to overcome your free will, nor does he want to, because that would mean there's no love. And a universe with the possibility of love, where you can misuse your free will, is better than a universe without the possibility of love. But there's natural limitations Krishna has. The limitation is you won't turn towards him. Therefore, he can't pour love into you. But if you do turn towards Krishna, that opens the door for miracles to occur. Now, would an all-good God, could you sincerely turn towards Krishna and still have material desires left? Yes. Would there be a sense in which your turning towards Krishna was different than someone who had no material desires left that could give their full being? Yes, it would be different. Would it still be meaningful and loving and romantic and beautiful for a person with material desires to just love Krishna more? To just love Krishna more? Would that be beautiful? Yeah. Would an all-good God be interested in accepting that kind of love? Would an all-good God be interested in reciprocating with that love? That immature love that was sincere, but that was in a person that still possessed material desires, but they really were trying to turn toward you. Would an all-good God want to engage with and help such a person? Would an all-powerful God be able to? Would an all-knowing God know what you needed? And so Krishna just opens the door for Krishna to begin reciprocating with you. There may be a limitation to how much Krishna can give himself to his immature devotee who has the good quality of turning towards him in all circumstances. There may be a limitation on that. Perhaps it's not good for us. I was just counseling one of my friends who's a teacher, and some people are hating on him, and all their critiques were all bogus. None of them made any sense. They were all illogical and unreasonable. Their evidence was garbage. And I was like, I want to tell these people what their actual gripe is. And their actual gripe is they got too familiar with their teacher. And so it's important for there to be some distinction, some boundary, some distance between the teacher and the student, because familiarity breeds contempt. People get too casual, and then they lose their ability to hear and have faith in what you say and follow your direction. So one of the things teachers have to do is keep a little bit of space between them and their students. You got to bring them close, embrace them, but not embrace them too much that they become your buddies. You guys following this? So Krishna might want to embrace us fully, but he can't because it's not good for us. And so out of love for us, Krishna's limited in how much he can make himself available to us because we don't really want Krishna fully, and it'll mess up the relationship. Krishna can only give himself to us as much as we want Krishna. But we can really maximize our wanting of Krishna even while we still have some material desires. You will ultimately get to a point where to really turn fully, right? You have to let this go. But it's not just, it's like, you know what I mean? It's like that, you know? And so there's that point where you're not perfect, but you really decide, my life is for Krishna. I'm committing my life to Krishna. I'm going to serve Krishna every day for the rest of my life. I'm going to follow my vows for the rest of my life. The devotees are the most important people in my life. My community is the most important thing in my life. I don't care if I make money. I don't care if I become famous. I don't care if I become successful in whatever field you want to become successful in. All that really matters to me is I get Krishna. And I'm still dabbling in the material world, but I'm not, Krishna's not a compromising thing anymore. Krishna's not something I'm going to compromise on. I'm a devotee. That's my life. That's who I am. That's who I'm always going to be. That's the goal of my life. That's my raison d'etre. That's why I was put on God's green earth. I'm going to do that lifetime after lifetime. I'm never going to stop. I'm never going to stop trying. Even if I fall down, I'm going to get back up. No matter what happens, I'm going to keep trying forever. Because that's who I am. Because that's what matters the most to me. You can cultivate that while still having some material desires. Cultivating that will start to mitigate and get rid of those material desires. But it doesn't all happen point for point. And so we want to give people an excess of love for Krishna. Like we want to maximize their love for Krishna. Make it just excessive. And then it just overwhelms their material desires, and those material desires start to dissipate. And you love Krishna enough where you're like, yeah, I'm lusty, but I'm not going to fall down because I love Krishna. It's just like take a cold shower, do a few push-ups, call a friend, journal, take a walk, meditate, do some breathing, and then take another cold shower, do some more push-ups, have a snack, take a nap, call another friend, journal a bit more, and then do some squats, and then call somebody else, and then journal a bit more, and then pray, and then take some deep breaths, do a little progressive relaxation, and do some bandhas and mudras to kind of like lock up that lower chakra, and then have another snack, take another nap. You follow? I'm just committed, so I'm just going to keep on keeping on. You follow? Like I had a friend one time, we were going out to distribute books. Actually, we were going out to sell paintings in Singapore, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm feeling really lusty." It's this Italian devotee, and I'm like, "That sounds really horrible. I'm really sorry to hear that, Prabhu." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm not going out." He's like, "It's basically, I just tell Krishna in the morning, like, if you make me too lusty, I'm not going to go out because I want to go out and like get all wrapped up in the world. So if my mind is not peaceful, I'll just stay home and chant all day. I'm just not going to go out." That was his deal. It's like, if my material desires are too much, I'm just going to lock myself in a room and not go out so I can't get in any trouble. And then when Krishna wants me to go out and make him some money and do some business for him, then he'll make my mind peaceful and then I'll go out. But I'm not willing to risk putting myself in harm's way for anything. And so if I don't feel right in the morning, I'm just going to like keep the door closed and chant all day. Wild, right? That's commitment. I remember hearing that and I was like, you're my people. Like, this is my tribe. Like, I appreciate that. That speaks to me. You follow? Like, whatever it takes, this is my path. I'm going on this path. I'm going to succeed on this path. And no matter what happens, I'm going to walk this path. And I'm going to keep crying out to Krishna forever until he finally decides to reach down and help me, give me a leg up, empower me, show me the way. That type of person exists, where they make the smart move of turning towards Krishna. That move of turning towards Krishna is therapeutic, it's prophylactic, it opens a lot of doors. You do it a little bit, and then you do it more, and you do it more, and you do it more. And the more you do that, the more Krishna becomes obliged and capable of jumping into your life in a radical and mystical and miraculous and breathtaking and beautiful way. And so for most of us, it's important to actually learn this art of turning towards Krishna in difficult times because we're not ready to give up our material desires yet. So we have to make sure we have an excess. We have to have excessive desires for Krishna, such that the material desires we have don't overwhelm us, such that we open the door enough for Krishna that he can make magic happen in our lives. And then we have enough faith in Krishna. You can be like, "Look, Krishna, you know what I want, but I don't know what's good for me or not." Like, I wanted to marry my wife. I was in Vrindavan. My guru told me to go to Vrindavan and worship the deities for 6 months or a year. So I wanted to get married. Told my guru I wanted to get married. And he sent me to Vrindavan to be a pujari. Like, I served him for so many years. And now I'm like, okay, I'm ready to get married now. And he's like, yeah, go away for a year. You follow? So that's what it was. So that's what it did. Then somehow I was already in love with my wife. It's a complicated story. I won't tell you the whole story. But I was already smitten by my wife. So I'm in Vrindavan worshiping the deity, but I'm actually in love with Radhika. Like, not Radhika Rani, but Radhika Dasi, my wife. And so she's in my mind the girl I want to marry. She doesn't know that. I don't know, like, we're not connected at all. I see her like once a year. But in my mind, that's what it is. So I'm just like, I just pray the deity. I tell my guru, my Shiksha guru. I didn't tell my initiating guru. We don't have that kind of a relationship where I talk to him about this kind of stuff. But I have a Shiksha guru. that I explained in detail, like my situation. And he gave me a hug, told me to be okay, and patted me on the head and blessed me and was good to me and counseled me and was kind to me. And then it was, it took the edge off, but not fully. And I'm like in Vrindavan, like in love with a girl I never talked to. And then my guru is going to tell me who I have to marry. So that's just like a whole other thing. I'm from that generation where my guru like arranged the marriage. So I didn't get to choose my wife. So it's like he won't even let me get married, and I don't get to choose my wife. And I'm like in love with a particular girl, and I'm in Vrindavan, and I'm worshiping the deities every day, and it's bugging me. Like it's like getting to me. It's like really starting to bug me. And then there was this greasy devotee who was a kirtan leader, a Gurukul kid, and whatever, man, is what it is. And he was leading kirtan or bhajans, and he's like a greasy guy, like a womanizer, like literally like greasy guy, like grease in his like thick, updo, whatever you call it, top knot, with like big flamboyant chadran, leading kirtan, so he's making love to the microphone. And I'm like, what if this guy ends up marrying my Radhika instead of me? Like he doesn't know Radhika. He's in Vrindavan with me. But like that's how spun I am. You follow? I've never told anybody the story before. And I want to swear now, but I'm like, I'll kill that dude. Beat that dude up. He tries to bust a move on my wife. You understand the twisted place I was? So I was finally just like, this is like a serious problem. So I just went in front of the deities and I just said, okay, I went in front of Radha Shyam Sundar. They're like very, very beautiful deities. And I said, it's up to you. You figure it out. Either you A, arrange for me to get married to this girl, or you B, you take the desire away. But it's interrupting my bhajans, it's disturbing my service. I'm your pujari, I'm touching you every day. I have this material desire, it's not going away, I can't manage it on my own. So I'm giving it to you. I'm just handing it to you. It's in your hands. You do whatever you want to do. And all I ask is that whatever decision you make me know that it's what you want, and I'll be satisfied with that. That's enough for me. If I know it's what you want, I can do anything. You follow? And that was it. I was peaceful. So I was young. I was 24 years old. I had been a monk since I was 16, been celibate since I was 16. And I was really wanted to marry this girl. And it was disturbing my life and my meditation and my service and my ability to fulfill the instructions of my elders and, peacefully progress. I wasn't lusty, jumping out of my skin, because I'd been celibate for 8 years. So I was on that level self-control, but in my heart, my mind was disturbed. You follow? And that event happened where I wanted to assault this person because I went a million miles in my mind down that dark rabbit hole. And that was enough. I just went in front of the deities and I said, okay, this is it. I can't deal with it anymore. It's you. It's you. It's your responsibility. You do it. I'm not doing it. I'm walking away from this. It's all on you. You guide it. You make it happen or not. You show me what you want me to do. You tell me what you want me to do, and I'll do what you want, and I'll be happy for the rest of my life. It's on you. My life is in your hands. My desires are in your hands. You do with them what you want. I'm your servant. And I'd read this verse. So I was thinking about this verse. The verse you quoted to me, I was thinking about during this time. And that was it. I went back to my service. I went back to studying Sanskrit. I went back to following my guru's instructions and taking counseling from my elders and just let go. And I was peaceful. And then through however it happened, I married Radhika. That whole thing worked out. Months later, it wasn't like it worked out in 5 minutes. Months later, after my guru was satisfied, and there was a whole story about how the whole thing went down, and then we got married. And now we've been together for 24 and a half years. Krishna, like that was like he wanted. I mean, it was a real prayer to Radharani. I was more praying to Radharani even than I was to Krishna. That's a whole other thing. But I mean, we want to be protected by Radharani. Ultimately, we want to be Polyadasis. Maybe Radharani is protected wards. And so I prayed to Radharani and I left it. And I found peace in that. It worked for me. And so you go to Krishna, you take your desires, you give them to him, and then he either fulfills them or doesn't, and makes things happen. And there's also been many times in my life where this is like one time I did this. Maybe not even the first, but it was a particularly traumatic one. But since then, there are many, many times in my life where I've gone to Krishna and just given something to Krishna and then like let it go. Here you go, Krishna. It's the zeros now. This is causing me too much disturbance. I can't navigate this on my own. Boom. It's yours. And every time, without exception, Krishna has dramatically improved my life and touched me in a miraculous way and drawn me closer and given me everything I needed and way more. Ichapidana means like the limit of desire. He gives you anichitam. You don't want it, but ichapidana, he gives you like the topmost desire, like the last limit of what you could possibly desire. The apex. Because he's Krishna. Because he's a reservoir of pleasure. Because he's love personified. Because he's the supreme lovable object. You're turning towards the embodiment and the personification of love. Whatever you wanted is a spark of that splendor, a drop of that ocean. And so Krishna consciousness in a lot of ways is learning this art, the art of turning to Krishna and handing things to Krishna and having that faith. We teach you about the nature of God. We make arguments so you can actually have faith in Krishna, try this out, and get your own experience. But in a lot of ways, Krishna consciousness is, over the course of a life, over the course of many years, over the course of trial and error, over the course of success and failures, learning this lost art and science of just giving your heart to Krishna and letting him make magic, exceed your expectations, improve your life. All right. Thank you very much, IGTV. Thank you very much, Facebook. Guys, have a lovely evening. Give me some feedback. Yeah.